Good morning, Britain. Half-term hit as a new round of rail strikes targets the holiday. Just 4 in 10 services will run today, and union bosses face criticism for disrupting the getaway and major events.
Derby and FA Cup fans will face a tough time travelling on the weekend. Here in Newcastle this morning, well, it's cancellations across the board.
You could still be due up to £400 to help with your energy bills if you're on a prepayment meter. We'll explain how you've only got a month left to claim it.
Artificial intelligence could kill off the human race, and some of the scientists who helped create it say the tech needs regulation before it's too late.
Something will be announced pretty soon with all 5 of us. I can say that.
And is this finally the hilt of a Spice Girl reunion? The reunion we've all been waiting for. More from my chat with Mel B later on.
And high pressure is set to keep the weather settled over the next week or so. But today, it's a grey start with increasing amounts of sunshine. All that and more coming up on Good Morning Britain.
Wednesday, 31st of May, 2023. Live from Television Centre in London. This is Good Morning Britain with Charlotte Hawkins and Ed Balls.
Hello there, good morning. It's just gone 6 o'clock this morning. A busy day, lots to talk about today. I mean, should we talk about the fact that we could be killed off? The human race could be killed off. That's the fear because of artificial intelligence. Just when you have these things that you think are going to improve our lives, make things easier, all of a sudden they could turn on us.
Feels kind of quite dramatic, like a sci-fi novel, but actually you've got all these really big names from the tech world saying this is a really serious threat. You know, the power, the scale of what's happening with computers, their ability to think beyond what we can think and faster. And actually you wonder, is politics really on top of this? You know, is it about rogue states and are we controlling them? Are we making sure that they can't access the technology like we do with nuclear weapons? But more generally, you know, do we understand the scale of these threats and are we getting a grip? I mean, I have to say, I find it quite scary because you think to yourself, well, maybe we're all just behind the curve.
Maybe we are. Are there enough safeguards in place? And also, it's one of those things where you think, you know, we might only discover what the consequences could be when they start to happen. And
there's us discussing WhatsApp messages and train strikes and all these things. And in fact, you know, the AI threat could be as big as the threat of climate change or nuclear weapons.
We'll be talking about train strikes in just a moment, but we should give a mention, shouldn't we, to the COVID WhatsApp messages because, you know, the deadline has been extended, not quite as far as the civil service wanted it extended. They'd said, you know, Monday was what they wanted, but they have until 4 p.m. tomorrow. Yeah. And apparently they don't seem to have all the messages that have been asked for by the chair of the COVID inquiry, who wants these WhatsApp messages, wants access to all the diaries. But they have said, well, no, because there's a personal information in there, you don't need access to all of it. Yep. What do you make of this? I think even in good times, when things are going well, and Whitehall and Downing Street look serene, there's always quite a lot of kicking going on below the surface. But sometimes there's a scale of kind of panic and worry because you're not quite on top of the situation, and sometimes you can see the panic and the worry, and they do seem to be a bit all over the place. Because what they know is they're going to be handing over stuff which is going to shape an inquiry over 2 or 3 years, and they don't know if they've got the right stuff. If they give it, what's that going to mean in terms of the scrutiny and the scale of the revelations? It feels as though they are kind of running to catch up. It's a bit like AI and a bit more immediate maybe for the government, but maybe not on the same global scale. You only realise the consequences when it's too late, because we saw from the WhatsApp messages that came out because of Matt Hancock's book, didn't we, that actually, you know, sometimes it's not just the things that are talked about, but it's the way they're talked about as well, which actually, when it comes to light, is seen as distasteful. I mean, in that case, the Cabinet Secretary talking with the Health Secretary. Exactly. Something else, we've got Mel Stride actually coming on, the Work and Pensions Secretary, so we'll be talking to him about that, as well as he's talking about childcare payments, which will be rising from the end of June. So good news from that point of view. We should also mention on the front pages again today the situation with Philip Schofield and ITV. The latest is that Philip Schofield has been dropped as an ambassador of the Prince's Trust. They found it was no longer appropriate for them to work with him. And also we have this development that the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, who had a meeting with ITV executives in the diary for Monday, will now, it's the committee, the Commons Committee for that, will now be speaking to executives about this situation as well. I
mean, it's obviously on the front pages every day, everybody's talking about it. It's one of those moments when actually Parliament can play a really important role, because the committee next week is discussing the media bill, and they've got senior executives coming in from ITV, from Channel 4 to Channel 5 to discuss that ongoing legal framework. But clearly, huge interest in what's happened, opportunity for senior ITV executives to set out the position, to answer questions. And I think there's something about a select committee where it's done over 2 or 3 hours, quite forensic questioning, but in a calm atmosphere. It's one of those moments when Parliament can play a really important role in our national life. And I think it'll be really important next week for the committee to get that right. And I should think that the executives from the ITV will be looking forward to answering those questions, because actually it's good to go beyond the statements and set it all out. So, yeah, big week next week.
Good to get clarity. And if you're enjoying your half-term this week, I'm afraid there might be disruption to it from now on, because our main news is the fact that rail passengers are facing fresh travel disruption from this morning as the first of 3 days of strikes begins. The walkouts by drivers, guards and station staff from 2 unions are part of long-running disputes over pay, jobs and conditions.
Train companies are warning services will be severely reduced, impacting the half-term holidays as well as fans travelling to major sporting and music events. And Juliet Dunlop is up in Newcastle at the station there. Juliet, workers from 2 different unions, the RMT and ASLEF, both striking over 3 days this week.
Yes, that's right. Morning. Both travelling by train over the next few days really is going to be very difficult indeed for passengers. They are facing huge disruption across much of the country. In some places there are simply no trains running at all. 16 rail operators will be involved in this action, and as you say, 2 unions are taking part. Train drivers who are members of ASLEF, well, they are on strike today and on Saturday, and on Thursday members of ASLEF, well, they will refuse to work any overtime. Then, well, on Friday it is the turn of the RMT union. As you say, members of the RMT who are guards and station staff, well, they will walk out. And the timing of this, well, for a lot of things happening over the next few days, it really couldn't get much worse than this. So not only will the daily commute be affected, but some pretty big sporting events and music events, as well, of course, as the half-term holidays. But let's take a quick look at just some of the things that will be affected. Now, Elton John is playing, Coldplay, they are in concert. On Saturday, it is the Epsom Derby, a huge day for racegoers. Also on Saturday, some 90,000 football fans will need to get to Wembley somehow for an all-Manchester FA Cup final. Also on Saturday, well, Beyoncé is playing in the capital. So some really big events there will be impacted. Now, Mick Whelan, the leader of the ASLEF union, we'll hopefully be hearing from him just after 8 o'clock this morning. He says there is no waning of enthusiasm from train drivers to continue taking industrial action. He says his union, his members are in it for the long haul. But what do passengers think?
I can understand why they have to do it, because they feel they need to. But obviously it's very inconvenient for everybody.
At the end of the day, I support the strikes. I think they're important and they're trying to fight for what they think is right.
What they're striking about, does anybody know? Apart from, you know, obviously they want more money, don't we all?
Now, ASLEF has turned down a pay rise of around 8% over 2 years. The RMT has also rejected the latest pay offer that they have received. The government says that it has made a fair and reasonable offer. But as we stand here this morning, a very empty station behind us here, there is no obvious sign of any breakthrough between the government and the unions. And at the moment, well, we could well be looking at another summer of strikes on the railways.
OK, Juliet, thanks very much for that. We're going to be speaking to Mick Whelan, the General Secretary of ASLEF, after 8 o'clock this morning. Talk to him particularly about that issue of timing. With so much going on at the weekend. It's going to be really tricky for people, isn't it? Also, we'll be talking about that with Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire. First is Sean with the rest of the day's news. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Charlotte. Thank you very much indeed. Good morning to you. Households with prepayment meters are being urged to claim government help with their energy bills before the scheme closes in a month's time. Well, Jonathan Swain joins me in the studio to give us more details.
Sean, thanks very much indeed. There is cash available this morning to help with your bills, so have a listen. The government's energy bill support scheme was set up to help with the rising costs over the winter. We all know about that. All households were eligible for £400 paid in 6 instalments. But customers on traditional prepayment meters, often some of the most vulnerable in society, were paid in vouchers. And a total of £130 million worth of that support still remains unclaimed. Well, from today, there's now a big campaign with the government and even the energy suppliers themselves urging prepayment meter customers to claim that help before the scheme ends on June the 30th. So if you think you are eligible, visit a post office or a pay point with your vouchers and ID. If you have lost them, though, or they have expired, they can, we're told, still be reissued, but you have to use them before the end of June. So, Sean, there's millions of pounds worth of cash. Go and claim it.
Not too long to go, Jonathan. Thanks very much indeed. Also this morning, Philip Schofield has been dropped as an ambassador for the Prince's Trust, with the charity saying it was no longer appropriate for it to work with the presenter. ITV executives are due to appear before MPs next Tuesday as part of a pre-arranged hearing of TV bosses. They're expected to face questions about Schofield's departure from ITV following his admission that he lied about a relationship with a younger colleague. Parents on Universal Credit will be able to claim hundreds of pounds more to help with childcare costs from the end of June. The government has announced the amount families on benefits can claim will rise to £951 for one child and £1,630 for 2 or more children. But Labour say the Conservatives are piling pressure on a broken system. Trans rights protesters have interrupted a talk at the Oxford Union by feminist Kathleen Stock. Around 200 protesters marched towards the debating society ahead of the talk before one demonstrator glued themselves to the floor. Professor Stock, who argues that trans women born male should not be able to access female-only spaces, resigned from Sussex University in 2021 after being accused of transphobia, an allegation she strenuously denies. North Korea has attempted to launch its first military spy satellite, sparking emergency alerts in South Korea and Japan. North Korea said an accident caused the satellite to crash into the sea and has vowed to attempt a second launch as soon as possible. Well, artificial intelligence could lead to the extinction of humanity, according to a group of leading technology experts. In a statement, tech leaders have warned that the technology should be prioritised in the same class as pandemics and nuclear wars. Here's our North America correspondent, Noel Phillips.
Imagine a world where robots like this can replicate our emotions or even do our jobs for us. Once upon a time, artificial intelligence was science fiction. But now experts say we're in the midst of an AI revolution which could wipe out the human race. The stark warning from innovators who are creating the machine themselves comes as companies race to integrate the technology into our lives.
We need all hands on deck here to be able to control these systems. And an important component in this distributed structure of accountability and control is regulation, of course, right? We need laws, we need regulation to put guardrails around the use of these systems.
Even in its current form, AI is groundbreaking. Robots assisting in medical surgeries or even helping around in the office could soon become a reality. The need, though, for regulation is profound. G7 leaders will meet next week to consider what can be done to hold artificial intelligence systems accountable for their impact. But like it or not, the distant future is already here. Noel Phillips, Good Morning Britain, New York.
Now, Downing Street has rejected claims of a cover-up in the row over whether they will hand Boris Johnson's WhatsApp messages and diaries to the COVID-19 inquiry. Our chief correspondent, Richard Gaisford, is at Downing Street for us. Good morning, Richard. So yesterday, of course, we talked about that 4 p.m. deadline. That's passed. The government's been given more time to hand over the messages. But officials say they don't even have all the documents.
Yes, since I was standing here yesterday, Sean, we've got the sound of changing tunes and maybe even the passing of bucks at the moment. The officials continuing to say here at Downing Street that they have privacy concerns for ministers about handing over this kind of information. The problem, they say, is now that they just don't have these crucial WhatsApp messages that Baroness Hallett, who is the chair of this public inquiry, really wants to get her hands on. She wants the unedited versions to give her an insight into decision-making and communications between ministers during the pandemic and the pandemic response. Now, interestingly, yesterday, Boris Johnson has said he'd be happy for her to have them. The issue, though, it seems that, well, no one seems to know quite where they are, and that is stretching the belief of many when you think that these messages were perhaps crucial to the Partygate investigation, that they might have been filed away somewhere. We've seen, of course, one side of some of these conversations through Matt Hancock's messages, which were published by the Daily Telegraph. This is all leading to claims of a cover-up, protecting the government from some of the problems that might come from this pandemic inquiry. Rishi Sunak, though, says nothing is further from the truth.
The government has cooperated with the inquiry. Tens of thousands of documents have been handed over. And with regard to the specific question at the moment, the government's carefully considering its position, but it's confident in the approach that it's taken.
Well, Baroness Hallett has extended that deadline, as you say, to 4 o'clock on Thursday and has demanded a sworn statement from a top official if the Cabinet Office is still unable to find these messages, Sean.
Richard, thanks very much indeed. England women's head coach Serena Wiegman will announce her squad for this summer's Women's World Cup later today. Lorna Shattuck is at St George's Park, the home of the Lionesses. Lorna, Serena Wiegman, well, she's got some big decisions to make, hasn't she?
She certainly has, Sean, that's right. Yeah, there's just 7 weeks to go now till that kick-off down under for the Women's World Cup. And I think it's fair to say the English hopes have never been higher. 32 teams in total taking part in that competition, the same as the men's game. And the big decisions are now for Serena Wiegman to make. She'll be making that announcement later today. But who will be getting on that plane down under? Well, we know that it cannot be the same squad as was victorious in the Euros last year. And that is because the captain, Leah Williamson, for one, is definitely out through injury. She has ruptured a ligament. Alongside Fran Kirby, the star of Chelsea, who also sustained a knee injury in February. So they're definitely out, as are some big household names who have stepped down since last year, including, of course, the midfielder and queen of the jungle, Jill Scott, and Ellen White, the record goal scorer for England. So those are some of those who won't be necessarily making the squad. But I'm joined now by Siobhan Chamberlain, who's won 50 caps for the Lionesses, to talk about some of those who might be getting on the plane down under. And Siobhan, the goalie, Mary Earps, could definitely be one to watch.
Yeah, she's most definitely going to be on that plane. She'll be on that squad list. She's one of the first names on the team sheet at the moment. She's had a fantastic season for Manchester United. She was obviously brilliant, as you said, at the European Championships, but got the clean sheet record for Manchester United that came so close in the FA Cup final and with the league. So defensively, that would be a real positive. And talking about defence, obviously with Leah Williamson out, with Millie Bright struggling with injury, Alex Greenwood for me is going to be another player that's going to be key for them. She's had a brilliant season with Manchester City. She's played consistently at that centre-back position, so she'll be one that's very experienced and ready to go for this World Cup. And if you go a little bit in front of her, Kira Wolf, she's one that's just left Manchester City, but she's had a brilliant season at Barcelona, and she's a standout player for me. She's one that kind of dictates the midfield role from that holding position for England, and she, for me, is going to be one of the key players if England are going to be successful this summer.
OK, so 3 faces to be looking out for when Serena Wiegman makes those all-important announcements later this afternoon. But I think it's fair to say the countdown is now on for Down Under.
It certainly is, Lorna. Thank you very much indeed. So, yeah, the tournament, New Zealand, Australia, it kicks off on July the 20th. England in action against Haiti on the 22nd. Republic of Ireland, actually, on the opening day against the host Australia.
So what time will the games be on TV here?
I think I was just looking at it, something like sort of 10:30, some of them.
In the morning?
In the morning, yeah. That makes sense, doesn't it? Because they're the opposite to us. So that'll be a late
the
kick-off
working
there.
day, couldn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So the early games might be even like 7, 8, 9 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, do you remember the World Cup, the Men's World Cup? What was it? The one in Japan and Korea? That was a bit like that. We wake up in the morning and watch the games, wouldn't we?
I think it's going to be the sporting highlight of the summer.
Well, the Ashes. I mean, there's a few big things.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to
Go on, the Lionesses. That's
even
what
bigger.
I say. Sean, are you ready for the highlight of the morning? Anyway,
I
because
certainly am.
you know, we've had this unofficial bake-off challenge that was set.
I came in. Look, I've got to say, I came in this morning. I can't tell you how many people said to me, "Your banana bread yesterday was really good." In fact,
This
our
is what
deputy
worried me.
editor
You got a lot of
Daniel,
praise.
he said it was moist. And I said to him, that's not a word I normally use because I'm banned at home from using it. Kids say, don't use that word. But he said, no, it genuinely was moist. And there's been people said to me, they were so disappointed they didn't get a slice. So I'm feeling pretty confident about our bake-off challenge.
So I said I was going to make some cupcakes. I have made some cupcakes.
Did
I would
you
just
deliver?
like to say, I think it's all in the presentation.
word.
I'm actually going to lift it up by the handle just in case.
Blimey.
I did spend a fair amount of time yesterday on the decoration. There you go.
There's a cupcake and there's a cupcake.
It's all about the
Charlotte.
piping. I'm just saying, did you have any decoration on the top of yours?
Well, I had a banana, but it sank into the middle of it, as was designed.
Would you like
I've
to
got to
try
say,
that one?
it's not. It's about how they taste, not about how they look.
Well, that's
However,
a bit of both, though, isn't
they
it?
do look amazing. Oh my good! Did you actually ice these yourself?
I did, and ice them myself.
Sean?
Don't throw it.
I have to say, there are a couple of different batches with different... And do you know what? Actually, if there's any criticism, I did use your... Oh, no! I did use your recipe for this, your sponge recipe with the double cream. So, actually, if they don't taste very nice, I can blame your recipe, can't I?
Right, let's try.
Oh, they're really good.
Oh, thank you.
What do you think?
Oh.
Sean's a bit covered in...
Go on, Sean.
No, melt in your mouth. Lovely. Really good.
Oh. It's got...
Alex, we probably don't want to risk throwing one your way, because heaven knows where that would end up.
I mean, I'll collect one after the forecast.
No,
oh,
do it.
No,
I thought he was going to throw it then.
I mean, gosh, they look pretty good. They look very similar to the ones that you can get in Greg's.
Don't say that. How very dare you?
They are not like
I can
Greg's.
say I did make these. I thought I'd have the help of my 8-year-old. I had the supervision of my 8-year-old who was giving me decorating pointers. But
very good.
Really
I think, you know, should we declare it a draw?
Well, I think you two, if it doesn't work out as presented,
Very
you know,
good.
there's a
We'll
future...
just keep up with the baking instead, won't we? Anyway, shall we find
Don't
out...
forget, it's the mood in the room which will decide it.
The mood in the room. Well, we'll distribute these and see what everybody else thinks, and then we could do a straw poll afterwards.
I know.
As long as Alex hasn't taken a big mouthful of cake, hopefully he's here to tell us what the weather... No, don't say that. Honestly, I'm not praising anybody.
No, they're actually very good, Charlotte. I expected nothing less from you. Right, should we have a look at the forecast? It's a pretty good one, although at the moment it's a bit of a grey start out there. Let's have a look.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed. Proud sponsors of weather on Good Morning Britain.
Well, as we head through the course of today, it is going to brighten up somewhat. And also, there will be more warm spells of sunshine, but a little breezier across some southern parts. And that will have an effect on the temperature and also the feel out there as well. Let's take a look at the sequence for today. As you can see, a bit of a grey start. But as we head through into this afternoon, you will notice that cloud gradually being nibbled away. Although I think across some parts in the Midlands, it will be a little more stubborn to clear. So temperatures here may be held at around 14 degrees Celsius, in fact, a cool day along the North Sea coast. And that is because we have a northerly flow there at the moment, a bit of an onshore breeze. So quite chilly, in fact, for this time in late May. But as you come out towards the west, you can see temperatures pick up a fair bit better, 24 possible out towards western parts of Scotland. As we head into this evening, it really is going to be a repeat performance. So we're going to see that cloud cover gradually increasing yet again. So as we start tomorrow, it will be a grey start, but like today, we are expecting the sunshine to come through as we head through the daytime, particularly in the afternoon. For the weather in detail where you are, go to itv.com/weather.
Thanks very much, Alex. Now, still